Hey there, this is Luminously here, and I thought to do something a little bit different. I absolutely love Elden Ring Nightreign, and currently with my main Wylder, I am up to depth 4 in the Deep of Night mode. So I decided that I would do a little post-commentary here of one of my depth 4 runs with randoms. I'm going to quickly run over here and show off all my relics. I don't have a perfect relic build, but honestly it gets the job done, and that's all that it really needs to do. So this is a post-commentary. I'm not actually doing this live as I am playing through the run, because I find that it's a lot easier to focus on the game and actually not throw the run if I'm doing the commentary after the fact. So I already know what happens in this run, and I'm going to walk you all through it, walk through my decisions and why I made them, and we're going to have some pretty cool boss fights along the way. So we're just going to wait here as we matchmake, and I'll see you all when we find a team. Alright, so we are here on day 1 with Fulgar as our Night Lord, and we have a Recluse and Iron Eye. So with this team of Wylder, Recluse, and Iron Eye, we have a ton of potential, especially when it comes to damage. Iron Eye's debuffs, especially marking and using poison, is incredibly handy, and I also have access to bleed with my claw shot. Iron Eye goes down straight away, so I just quickly use my claw shot into a running R2 in order to revive him. And we're just going to dispatch all these enemies here, and I do pick up a torch that has successive attacks negate damage on it, because that is incredibly powerful. I also mark a crossbow there that the Iron Eye might like, because it has good passive. Unfortunately, the Iron Eye goes down again, so I use the power of the double claw shot relic in order to quickly revive him, and I go to level up to level 2 here. We're actually going to go and level up to level 3 on some smaller enemies before we actually take on our first encampment, so I'll see you over there. Alright, we have leveled up to level 3 now, and we are going to go to this invader camp here. Specifically, it's an invader great cathedral, and I mark the spot at the entrance because I want us all to chill back here and just wait for the invader to come along. And we have a Knight Executor here. I'm just going to use Sacred Blade as a little projectile to catch him in his brawls, and also using my claw shot because that is really good against NPC invaders. They just do not know what to do about it. I'm actually going to drop an uncharged ult here as well, just to get in some extra damage, while also preserving a little bit of my ult bar so that we can save that for future bosses. And this drop here from the Executor is the most important in the run for me. I pick up the Executor's Katana +2, and the Recluse also drops down an Executor's Katana, and I say, you know what, sure, let's dual-wield katanas for this run. I'm honestly not the biggest fan of dual-wielding in Dark Souls 2 and also Elden Ring. I just find that I tend to be a little bit more exposed than I would like to, a little bit more vulnerable after swinging. I prefer to have a lot quicker attacks with just one-handing or two-handing, whereas I feel like I'm just a little bit too vulnerable with the dual wielding, but I decide to go with it anyway. And this katana has Hoarfrost Stomp on it, so as you just saw, we absolutely deleted the Fire Monk there. I do pick up Eleanor's Pole Blade here, and I don't actually use it. Initially I mark it to see if the Iron Eye wants to have it, but Iron Eye doesn't take it, Recluse doesn't take it, so I decide to bring it into my inventory just because it has a nice passive, and I really like this weapon. It has a super good weapon skill on it, but I don't actually end up using it at any point in the rest of the run, so it's kind of a wasted slot, other than having a pretty decent passive. I also pick up the Dragon Crest Shield Talisman here just for some physical damage negation. I was thinking of giving it to the Recluse, but Recluse typically doesn't really want to be on the front line or be in much danger of getting hit at all, so I decide I will just take it anyway, and we're just going to sit around here at this Everjail waiting for the Recluse to use her Stone Sword Key. And we're going to end up fighting an Omen here, so yet again I'm just going to Hoarfrost Stomp over and over in order to inflict frost, and we're going to get some backstabs here, and we're going to just absolutely delete them. I actually dropped another uncharged ult. I did not do any backstabs here, but the Iron Eye does get that critical hit in order to finish the job. So now we are going to move on to the boss that is in the Limveld Lake, which in this case is the Knight's Cavalry. You know what I'm going to do. That's right, I'm going to Hoarfrost Stomp. So we finish up the Knight's Cavalry here, and as I'm looking through the loot, we actually do get cursed by Libra, so we are going to make a little bit of a detour in order to go to Libra. And I believe that the entire team all decides to take the runes benefit, so we all have the Symbol of Avarice talisman for quite a while. But first we do decide to stop by to a Poison Ruins to get through that really quickly, and we absolutely annihilate them. But then we make our way to Libra, we pay off that debt, and we get the Symbol of Avarice talisman. Alright, now that we have the talisman, I quickly mark 2 churches of Marika here, and then I mark the central castle, because I feel like that routing makes sense to me. We're just going around counterclockwise, grabbing the churches, grabbing the flasks, and then making our way to the central castle, which is incredibly important in Nightreign runs. Whenever you actually have it available, there are a ton of runes to get there, and also you can get a ton of passives for your character, whether that's just through getting a bunch of weapons, or just picking the bottom option after defeating a boss. Here at the Church of Marika, I actually stop here for a moment in order to grab some consumables. I think that consumables are incredibly underrated in Nightreign. They can absolutely make a difference, especially boiled crabs. I also really do enjoy using warming stones. And of course, I like to grab items in order to build up my resistance to certain status effects like bleed and frost and poison and rot and madness and all that. Alright, now we are making our way to the castle basement. Here we are fighting a Royal Revenant, which unfortunately gets the Iron Eye very quickly into the fight, but thankfully I decide to use another uncharged ult just to get the Iron Eye up and also preserve some of that gauge, just so I can use that later in the fight if it drags on, and if not, then I can also just use it on any of the other bosses in the castle. The Iron Eye actually does go down again, but thankfully we are able to revive him. The Recluse uses an ultimate, and then I use Double Hook in order to get him back up. One of my favorite things about Wylder is that, especially in a group, you are able to play incredibly aggressively thanks to your death save passive, as I like to call it. So typically my strategy is that I will play quite aggressive, and if I trigger the passive, then that is my call to back off and play a little bit more patiently, which I do lose the passive there. I do fail to dodge in time. I press dodge a little bit too late on one of those lunges from Royal Revenant, but it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things because we absolutely delete the Royal Revenant thanks to poison, thanks to frost, and thanks to bleed. I do think of taking the Sword of Milos here, but I decide not. We're up here in the courtyard now taking on the Elder Lion and the Banished Knights, and, well, you know how this goes. We're just gonna Hoarfrost Stomp and also use our innate bleed on the katanas in order to delete the enemies. And just as we are done here, the storm is moving, so I grabbed Increased Poise, I mark the final circle, and we're gonna go to the Night 1 boss. We arrive here in the central circle. I decide to drop off some Starlight Shards if the Recluse wishes to have them. We are fighting the fucked up little hands here, which means that the boss for the night is going to be Centipede Demon, a returning boss from the original Dark Souls, which Dark Souls 1 is my favorite Souls-like. Although I do absolutely still adore Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3. This fight goes relatively smoothly, although I do immediately trigger my death save passive because I was not being careful enough. I tend to underestimate bosses from the Dark Souls trilogy in this game because I'm like, oh, well, you know, I've fought them before, I know what they're all up to. And we actually managed to cut off one of its tails, arms, which kind of cancels it trying to jump, I believe. I also do a full charge ult here because I don't really need that bar for anything else at the moment other than just doing this fight. And I'm going to get in a ton of damage and a ton of stagger in. And we kind of just go on to delete the rest of the fight. Speeding through day 2 here, our plan is to mostly just go to the crater event which we have, but along the way I do stop to fight this ancient hero of Zamor, who really confused me because they were just kind of standing still at first and their AI wasn't working until I hit them, so I do lose my death save passive here and I mess up a parry on them, and I get nearly brought to my death again, but this time I stand firm, I get that parry on them, and immediately after riposting, I mark my spot just to let my teammates know, hey, I'm fighting this field boss. and I'm able to get another parry in here. And by the time that I riposte here, the Iron Eye shows up and we're able to start really inflicting some damage. Now unfortunately, the Ancient Hero decides to target the Iron Eye, which means that I don't really get to get my parries anymore, but by this time, the fight is already over for them. We take these Spectral Hawks in order to get to a Church of Marika, and immediately after that we go to the crater, which typically I don't enter the crater from the northwest, I typically enter it from the northeast, so we actually do get to fight the Demi-Human Queen encounter along the way, and then we move on to fighting the Falling Star Beast, who goes down incredibly quickly. At this point, we're just speeding through the crater event now, making sure to take down all of the bosses along the way to the Magma Worm. Now we are here at the Magma Worm, and well, you know how things go. I'm gonna use Frost, Recluse is gonna do a ton of damage, Iron Eye is gonna apply those marks and poison, and also get some Scarlet Rot in there as well. So the Magma Worm, quite frankly, doesn't stand a chance. Magma Worm is honestly one of the easiest bosses for me, not only just in this game, but in Elden Ring as a whole. They absolutely hit hard if you do mess up, so sometimes they do a bunch of damage. This fight kind of feels like a spiritual successor to Quelaag from Dark Souls 1, in the sense that one of the biggest threats is just managing with all of the magma that they spew around. And the Magma Worm has been absolutely deleted. It's pretty obvious which weapon I intend to make legendary here. I go with the Executor's Blade, although I am a little bit hesitant to do so, because I feel as if the Death's Poker might be a better choice, especially since it has an incredibly good skill on it as well. But I decide to just stick with my gut feeling and go with the Executor Blade. Next we fight some more bosses here, including the Red Wolf of the King Consort, who goes down incredibly quickly yet again. And we move on to the boss of Night 2. And we've got Outland Commander as our boss, who is going to go down really quickly yet again, because you know what, for stacking status effects, I am two-handing my Executor Blade now. At this point I have dropped my second Executor Blade just because of passives. I decide to back up a little bit and just Hoarfrost Stomp if that can actually hit from this range. I don't think it actually can, but it doesn't matter because both Recluse and Iron Eye absolutely delete the Outland Commander, and we now move on to the Night Lord, Fulgur. Alright, so we are fighting the regular version of Fulgur here. Personally, I actually find the regular version a little bit harder than the Everdark for some reason. I just find the Everdark flows a little bit easier, but this fight does go pretty smoothly. We're just stacking our status effects. I am trying to land Hoarfrost Stomp yet again in order to inflict some frost, which I do get that off. And typically when I do fight Night Lords, I tend to play a little bit more conservatively. Obviously I do want to be aggressive, like cancelling the attack there, but also I can't really easily refresh my death save passive if I lose it, so I am trying my best to basically do the Night Lords hitless. We move on to phase 2 incredibly quickly, and the Iron Eye gets one shot by the slam attack, so the Recluse is going to start trying to revive them, and I will finish reviving with my claw shot there. Recluse drops her ultimate there, and I decide to just keep using more Hoarfrost Stomps, although I do prioritize dodging. Yet again, cancelling this move with a Charge Heavy. And I do actually get hit here for a lot of damage. I am not paying enough attention to my surrounding environment, and so I just get absolutely comboed and immediately lose my death save passive. But it is of no concern, because we get the knockdown, I get the riposte. I'm going to go into a full charged ultimate, and that will be the end of the fight. Overall, it was an incredibly solid fight, went super quickly, minimal mistakes there, and it was a really solid run overall. Thank you so much to my two teammates here, Schwan and Ski. I really do appreciate it. I do a little bow there, and I also do the buy my sword gesture, some of my favorites. And of course, now we gotta do the relic lottery, see what we got. Now, I just quickly go through these, and honestly, they're not really that great. I haven't really been getting super good Deep of Night relics, so I do actually take this relic here for Wylder that's got blood loss and defeating enemies fills arts gauge, because I think that is pretty solid, and I do believe that I get rid of the rest. And there we go, 200 points for that. So hopefully I'm able to continue the successes and get all the way to Depth 5, but for now, that is basically everything. That is my post-commentary Elden Ring Nightreign Depth 4 Wylder run. I hope you all enjoyed. If you want to see more of this type of content, then please write a comment or, like the video, subscribe, do all those YouTube things if you feel like it, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone.